Welcome to the Best Practices Podcast, Writing Intentional Teaching Plans for Infants Using the GELDS. Let's start out by talking about why lesson plans are an important tool for teachers to use. Imagine going on a trip without having any idea where you're going or how you'd get there, and you don't have a map to help you find your way. That's similar to going into a classroom without a lesson plan. A lesson plan gives you structure to standards you're trying to teach and the learning activities you implement each day. It's the difference between having a map for planning a trip and just trying to figure out where you're going using the road signs. Having a lesson plan to follow not only helps you be more intentional in your teaching, it also keeps you more organized and helps with managing the children. Let's take a look at the process. Georgia has revised the Early Learning and Development Standards for birth through age 5. They're available online at www.gelds.decal.ga.gov. Here's a quick overview of the GELDS. There are 5 color-coded domains: physical development and motor skills, social and emotional development, approaches to play and learning, communication, language and literacy, and cognitive development. Let's take a look at the GELDS website. Notice that if you click on the cognitive development domain, you will see the subdomains of math, science, social studies, creative development, and cognitive processes. When you click on a domain, such as here, social and emotional development, you see the strands, standards, and indicators that you can filter by age. You plan lessons using the indicators. Here's an example. This standard is labeled SED5. The child will develop relationships and social skills with peers. SED 5.0b means it's in the social and emotional development domain. It's the 5th standard for birth to 12-month-old age range, and the second indicator, Indicator B. Each indicator has a rationale that gives you a clearer understanding of what the indicator means you're teaching the children. It also gives you examples of the child exhibiting that skill. This is a good place to get ideas for activities or materials to use. This information is also available in the GELDS Resource Guide, another tool to help you plan your activities. Let's take a look at a strand from birth through age 2 to give you an idea of the developmental progression of the GELDS. In the cognitive development domain and in the subdomain math, there's a strand about geometric and spatial thinking. One of the standards, MA6, is about shapes. As development occurs, the GELDS indicators reflect the age and skill of the growing child. For this standard, an infant will explore objects of different shapes. A 1-year-old might be able to recognize some shapes and match 2 that are the same. And a 2-year-old might be able to recognize and name shapes with adult guidance. Becoming familiar with the GELDS will help you as you observe your children to see where their strengths and needs are. You can then decide what GELDS indicators you need to teach and plan your lessons. When you sit down to plan with certain GELDS in mind, you might be thinking about an overall topic or theme such as things that go or farm animals. Or you might make a plan around a particular school event or upcoming holiday. Other teachers use their children's interests in their plans. Be sure that you are intentional in what you are teaching. The indicators reflect what we need to teach, not what the children already know how to do. For the examples in this podcast, we'll use a lesson plan template that you can find on the GELDS website under Resources. There are many different templates teachers may use to plan lessons. It may depend on the age you teach, your center policy, or curriculum. Template 5 was developed exclusively for Georgia early learning teachers to support the GELDS. Let's look at the different areas and how you would plan activities for a week. We'll start with the largest portion of the day, exploration and play. Programs call this time different names such as free play, center time, or table time. It can and should include some teacher-directed activities as well as some child choice activities. The activities in exploration and play should be appropriate for the age of the children in your class. Think about using open-ended materials, meaning that children can use them in many different ways. A toy like this one might be expensive and can only be used in one way. There are 5 boxes. This does not mean to plan a different activity for each day of the week. Instead, think about a variety of activities and materials you may use across the different domains. Repeat these activities all week long. Children need lots of repetition to learn how to master a concept or skill. Using the theme Farm Animals, the exploration and play section might include the following activities: placing animals in and out of a barn. This activity addresses the Math GELDS indicator MA 4.0A, explores objects with different characteristics. You might also put rubber ducks out on mats for the children to explore. Making quacking noises and waddling like the ducks for the children to imitate would cover the GELDS indicator MA 4.0B, begins to imitate simple sounds and movements. You could also play peekaboo by covering animals with a cloth to encourage movement. This would cover the Physical Development and Motor Skills Indicator PDM 1.0B, initiates active play and engages in some physical activity. Watching and talking about fish in the aquarium relates to the indicator SC 3.0A, shows curiosity about people, plants, and animals. Again, each code tells you the domain, standard, age, and indicator. Now let's take a look at music and movement. Infants love music. Encourage them to sing, clap, or shake musical instruments. You can also work on gross motor skills by marching or jumping to the beat. Use a variety of recorded music as well as singing songs with the children. Singing Old MacDonald with a puppet with infants is an easy activity for the Farm Animals theme in an infant classroom. This Little Piggy is a fun one-on-one activity, as is rocking to Baa Baa Black Sheep. The GELDS indicator CR 4.0A shows interest in rhymes, finger plays, and stories with props, is appropriate to use for this age group. For infants, feeding can be a very large portion of the day. Mealtime is a good time to focus on communication. Really paying attention to a child's cues about wants and needs is a good focus for this week. And remember, all activities and corresponding GELDS do not have to go with the theme. When planning to watch for nonverbal cues during mealtime, use this GELDS indicator. CLL 3.0A communicates needs and wants through nonverbal gestures and facial expressions. Planning for outside time is important. Think about different domains you can teach while outdoors. When outside, point out and talk about the environment. Listen for bird sounds. You might see that the children in your class show curiosity and interest in his or her surroundings. GELDS APL 2.0B shows curiosity, interest in his or her surroundings, would be listed on your plan. For an outside gross motor activity, you might bring balls to roll or throw. This activity would fall under GELDS PDM 5.0b, develops emerging coordination and balance, often with support. Reading and telling stories helps children become familiar with sounds, words, language, and the value of books. This all builds your child's early literacy skills, helping him to go on to read successfully later in life. With infants, you can read a book with one or two children in your lap, or sometimes, when you pick up a book, they all become interested. Plan specifically which books you'll read each week so you can have them on hand. Always make sure you are familiar with the book ahead of time to make sure it's appropriate for your children. These books go along with the farm animals theme. Activities might include having familiar books available to read and explore on a mat and pointing to the pictures and making animal noises. These GELDS would be listed on your plans. CLL 2.0b responds to talking, singing, or reading. CLL 5.0a shows interest in shared reading experiences and looking at books. CLL 1.0c responds to repeated words and phrases. Reading books together builds early literacy skills and strengthens the bond between teachers and young children. Let's take a look now at the box labeled Transitions, Arrival, Departure. In an infant room, much of the day is about routines. Making a plan to teach specific concepts during these times helps with classroom management. It also gives you an opportunity to talk or sing with the children, which builds important language skills. For example, with infants, you might sing songs as you're changing diapers. If the theme is farm animals, you might sing Old MacDonald. You may also plan to sing Five Little Ducks as you get ready to go for a walk outside. While you're singing and using these transitions, the GELDS you will be covering are CR 3.0a, Experiments with Vocalizations and Sounds. CR 4.0a shows interest in rhymes, finger plays, and stories with props. Teachers may need to plan specific activities to meet a particular child's needs. Make special notes in the Adaptations section of the lesson plan, along with the corresponding GELDS. For infants, you might have some children in your class who are nonverbal. An adaptation would be to start teaching signs such as more. The GELDS indicator for this adaptation is CLL 3.0a, communicates needs and wants through nonverbal gestures and facial expressions. Finally, at the bottom of the lesson plan template, there are boxes to check to see which GELDS you have covered this week. This box lets you quickly see at a glance the GELDS you have planned with, ensuring that your activities address the interests and needs of each student. After carefully planning with the GELDS for your week, you will have a roadmap for where you want to go with your students. Before we end, let's look at some common questions teachers have. Do I teach all of the indicators to every child every year? No. In a typical classroom, you may have children that are quite young, but you may have infants that are 15 or 16 months old. Use the indicators that are appropriate for each child. You may use an infant indicator and a 1-year-old indicator with certain activities to meet the needs of the children. Remember the example from the beginning of the podcast that shows the developmental progression of the GELDS. Use the indicators that are appropriate for each child. How do I assess infants to understand what I need to teach them? The best way to assess children is through observation. Watch and listen to what they are able to do. If a child is just beginning to pull up on furniture, you know you need to help that child build the muscles in her legs for standing. You may plan an activity such as dancing to music. If an infant is not verbally communicating yet, you may plan to look at lots of books so you can point at pictures and say the words. Is it okay to repeat activities the next week? Children need repetition and practice to learn concepts. For example, shape sorters. An infant may be able to easily place the circle into the circle space, but struggles with turning the triangle so it will fit properly. But while repetition is good, it can also get boring for some children. There are often multiple ways to teach skills, so be sure to rotate your materials on shelves. Add some novelty by bringing in some new things. Collect recycled materials to create activities for infants. An oatmeal box becomes a fun container to place things in and out of, or a large empty box turned on its side can invite exploration or become a cozy place to read. Do I actually teach social and emotional development and approaches to play? Absolutely. These areas provide a foundation for helping children learn to communicate when they're frustrated and get along with others. For example, you might verbalize emotions you see children expressing while playing by saying, "You are sad because you want to hold that book. Let's see if we can find another book for you to read." This not only helps with identifying feelings, but also with language development. How can I help parents know what is appropriate to teach their children at each age? Share the GELDS website with parents. It's a great resource so they can see the things that you're working on in the classroom and they can do follow-up activities at home. We hope some of these ideas and strategies will help you plan using the GELDS. Remember, every class is different and you should plan based on the needs of your children. If you have questions about the GELDS, email gelds@decal.ga.gov. Thanks for watching.